Welcome to the Artistry and Life podcast, Navigating Towards Happiness. I'm your host, Ray, and with me I have life practitioner and coach, Marking. What is going on, Marking?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. On today's episode, we're going to talk about intentions and expectations and how you use it in your practice. Mm-hmm. So let's start with intentions.
Yeah, intentions versus expectations. So let's first off say that intentions and expectations, they're very similar, and there's a very subtle difference between intentions and expectations that can allow you a little bit more freedom in how you pursue any decisions or choices that you make as you go through life. Intentions versus expectations, the main difference between those two is that expectations are attached to a result or an outcome. Intention points you in the same direction, but it allows you a little bit more freedom. You're not attached to a specific outcome. Intentions may actually allow you to maybe exceed your expectations. In the Cliff Notes version, intentions versus expectations, that's what that is. One's attached to a specific outcome. Intentions, they're not attached to a specific outcome. They point you in the right direction of which way you choose to move.
But it does point you in the same direction. So
it can point you in the same direction. Yes.
So for example, if I wanted to be an astronaut, my expectations would be, I'm going to be an astronaut. Mm-hmm. But if I look at it with intention, then I can make a plan to become an astronaut.
Yes.
Not be so tied into the future of being an astronaut. And then when I don't become an astronaut, that's failure to me.
Exactly. And that's one of the nuances between expectations and intentions. When you have expectations, and you can think about this with your own personal past, like how many times have you set an expectation for yourself and you fell short, and how you were disappointed, right?
Yeah.
In other words, anytime we talk about a lot about managing expectations, one of the tools that I like to use in my own personal use is the way to manage expectations is not have any expectations. That way I don't set myself up for any kind of disappointment. What I'll do instead is approach that situation and being more intentional about it. That way I don't create that stress around myself in moving in that direction as it relates to my North Star, my mission statement.
Okay, related to your North Star, can you give us like an example of what you would do on a daily life practice for you and what you teach as a life coach?
We've talked about the performance anxieties that I have, right? When I'm up on stage or I'm being asked to go up on stage. Before I would have this expectation, well, I have to present myself in this way. And if I don't present myself in this way, then I might come across as not knowing what I'm talking about, or that I'm not good enough to talk about a certain topic. Instead, what I would do is approach it from a place of intentionality. And maybe that conversation looks like, instead of placing the expectation of I need to do it X, Y, and Z way, I may approach it from a perspective of I'm just going to have the intention of being present and allow and trust that the information that I want to get across is going to come across. And it may come across in a way that is more enlightened and not attached to the way I thought I would want to present it.
Having an expectation is more like laser focus. I want to be a champion. I want to be in the NBA. I want to be a great tennis player. I want to be the vice president or president of a company, things like that, right? Those are huge expectations that one puts on themselves. Is that correct? That's what an expectation is.
You're placing the emphasis on the outcome. Yes.
Okay. So bottom line, I'm going to be a president of a company. Or the company I'm working for now. If I put the expectation that I'm going to be president, period. And then just put horse blinders on and laser focus. And if I don't get to be president of that company, then what can I do using this practice, how I could change that way of thinking in being president, or just graduating from college or graduating from high school, or, things like that.
Instead of setting the expectation, I'm going to be president of this company, you could reframe to reclaim that and operate from a place of intentionality and create a conversation around, well, I'm going to be the best employee that I can be and in the moment, and trust that as I'm in that mindset, that it's going to get me to a place of leadership, high leadership position. And it may not necessarily be with that company. It may be with another company.
Yeah.
Or it may be or you may be even finding yourself like, as I go down this path, being intentional about moving towards being a president, I find out along the way that maybe that's not really what I want to do. I'm finding an interest in another direction. In other words, what we want to try to do with, or what we want to do with in intention and expectation, with intention, you really want to broaden the possibilities, as opposed to expectations where you're just limited to one option. It's another nuance between intention versus expectation. It allows you more flexibility, allows you a lot more adaptability, and it opens up the possibilities. You're not limited just to one outcome. Again, you might be able to exceed whatever it is the expectation is that you might have.
So with your speaking in front of people, or what were you saying, like going in front of an audience, with your open mic where you're the host, and you always kind of get this feeling of like you're scared, or what is that feeling that you get, and how is that expectation tied to it? I don't know if that makes any sense, but how are you tying that expectation to it?
In going up on stage, there may be an expectation of I need to come across a certain way. I need to be able to present the next act in a certain way so that it allows the next act to have a nice introduction.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being more in the moment of it and allowing myself to just take the pressure off of how I should present it, and just be in the moment and connect with the audience or connect with the next performer, being intentional in that sense. So that way it allows me to be more present instead of future tripping on how I think something should be, or how it should look like, or how it should come across, or how it should be presented to the audience.
So with expectation comes judgment. So that's what it sounds like what you're saying. Like you want to put the judgment aside for this particular expectation.
If you operate from a place of intentionality, you start to mitigate the judgments.
What comes to mind when you talk about intentionality is just have fun.
It allows you to be more creative and have more fun. And that's, we talk about navigating towards happiness. This is one of those tools where you can already start to mitigate some of the pressure from yourself by choosing, instead of to have expectations on a situation, switch it up. How can you make that expectation into an intentionality?
Okay. It kind of reminds me also of how our parents who are immigrants basically wanted us to be professionals, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and that was it. Pick one of those professions and you're going for it no matter what, because this is going to give you success. And how many people have failed their parents doing that? I know we all want to make our parents happy and proud, right? So how can one do that with intention?
Well, I think one is recognizing that these are expectations that are placed upon us. So if our parents are placing these expectations on us, then we're starting to place expectations on ourselves on, I have to reach this goal, otherwise my parents are not going to be happy. So if you just look at it from that perspective of how expectations can be very stressful, how much pressure it can create, how much disappointment it can create. And if you look at those situations and maybe operate from a place of intentionality, and how much that would allow you to free yourself from those feelings. So in that particular situation, now I can just have the intention of being the best student that I can be, and allow myself not to get attached to an outcome or a result, and just be in the moment of that and help to navigate through that process that way. The conversation of how that dynamic goes between your parents is a whole nother conversation. And if you're able to approach it from a place of intentionality, you may discover that whatever expectations they had placed upon you, you may exceed that and find out, you know what? I'm actually a better creative than I am a lawyer or a doctor. If I'm focused on being intentional on being the best student that I can be, or have the intention of just learning as much as I can, that may unfold itself into finding out that I'm actually a really great painter, or I'm a really great poet. Actually, I really like sports more so than I do like being stuck behind a desk working, a 9-to-5 type thing.
I hear that a lot, where a lot of people will just kind of like make their parents proud, get the degree, and just go in another direction.
Right.
Just to make them proud. And I know it's a deeper question than intention and expectations, but how can one put the intention into their parents? Like, I'm just going to try to be the best student I can be, like you said.
The dynamic between the parents, yourself and the parents, that's a whole nother conversation. It's more about just getting clear on being intentional as it relates to yourself. Because, not to get sidetracked, but that conversation ends up going in the direction of whose life are you living? Are you living your life for your parents, or are you living your life for yourself? And it's a very powerful question to ask yourself. And again, that's a different conversation. The point that we really want to get across to people is coming into practice of understanding that when you do have an expectation, recognize that you're working from that place, and allow yourself an opportunity to work from a place of intentionality and see how that works out for you. You may find out that you may experience less disappointment. You may find out that there's less stress involved because you're not putting that pressure on yourself to achieve a certain thing by a certain time in a certain way, depending on the actions of other people, or depending on the actions on an event that has to take place in order for that to happen. In other words, another way to look at it too is that expectations really, in a lot of cases, requires externals to help dictate what that outcome may look like. Whereas intentionality puts you more in control, because you're allowed to have more freedom and flow and grace in how you approach the direction that you want to go, or how you want to achieve your goal. Right?
Yeah.
They're both very similar, but being able to acknowledge the nuances in that, and being able to allow yourself the opportunity to switch from operating from a place of expectation and a place of intentionality. It's a subtle change, but can have a huge effect on how you feel about yourself. Because think about it, every time you set an expectation for yourself and you fell short, how shitty that felt. Right?
Yeah. That's like an expectation of me wanting to be a World Series of champion poker player at the WSOP in Vegas. So those are high expectations, and a huge dream of some. And, I had a big dream of that, of like becoming a professional poker player, winning a medal in that tournament. So is there a huge difference in like a dream and an expectation, and then using intention to try to navigate through it?
In that particular example, it's just operating from a different come from. Like, intentions and expectations can sometimes have the same result. It's just that intention allows you to potentially maybe exceed what those results may look like. Intentionality, if you're being more thoughtful, more mindful, more heartful about a situation, in other words, you're operating more from a place of your higher self, that allows you the opportunity to respond and be more intentional.
Got it. I could start small, join these small tournaments with intention, practice more in those tournaments, and then kind of move my way up. So like what you said before, have some flexibility.
And, again, you can have the goal, you can go in a certain direction, but let go of the outcome. If you let go of the outcome, you're going to be able to allow yourself an opportunity to just operate from a place of less stress.
Yeah, got it. So basically, if I have that big dream and I have that intention to be the best poker player I want to be and eventually win the biggest tournament in the world, right? I just know I need to work at it with intention, a plan, aim towards that goal and have plans and be flexible with the intention.
Well, let's be very clear. Both of them, expectation or intention, you can have a plan. Expectation determines a specific path for you. Expectation allows you to work that plan, and each point that where you work that plan allows you more flexibility. Sometimes when I work on step A, then the objective is to get to step B. If I allow myself not to get caught up with the outcome, maybe the next step from A to B, maybe there's option A to B1. And that actually might even get me to where I want to go to faster, or I might even learn more around that process of the journey. Whereas, expectation is just A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to your goal. Expectation is more rigid, and when it's more rigid, it has a potential of just snapping. Intention allows you that direction, but gives you a little bit more flexibility on how you get there a little bit, and you can adapt more.
Okay.
And thus creating different possibilities, different scenarios for yourself. It allows for a lot more interesting journey. If part of our North Star and mission statement is to live a happy life, this is one of those tools where you can start to mitigate some of the stress. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How can one use this on a daily?
Well, one of the ways they can do that is anytime they feel like there's an expectation around a situation they may come across, note that it is an expectation. That's the first thing. Acknowledge that, oh, I'm placing an expectation on myself or in a situation, or placing an expectation on others. That's another one too, right?
Yeah.
How can you flip the script to where it becomes more intentional, where you're allowing yourself not to get attached to the result or the outcome of that situation that you're dealing with or working through? That would be a perfect way to really allow yourself the opportunity to be in practice of working from a place of intention.
Awesome, man. So with that being said, you got to give me a quote.
Yeah. This quote can speak to the work, because being able to switch from expectation to intentionality, we may have preconceived notions about what intentions and expectations are.
Yeah.
So this quote will challenge those and allow you an opportunity to hopefully be open in practicing different ways of being, especially with the preconceived understandings that we may have about intentions and expectation. A wise man knows all, only a fool knows everything. That's an African proverb.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for being here, guys.